Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road podcast. I'm your host, Chris, and joining me today, all the way from TikTok, to share her paranormal experiences and maybe get into some Jinn talk is Noree. Welcome to the show, Noree.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to come on. I'm super excited to talk to you today. I saw a few of your TikTok videos. I'm like, okay, these are super creepy. And then before we started the show, we were talking for about a good 15 minutes or so. Turns out you have folks that are from the same area that I'm in. So it's such a small world.
Oh, yeah.
And one of your TikTok videos, or a few of them, you said the magic word that kind of like set my spidey sense off is
Yep.
Jinn.
Yeah, that's the one that tends to grab people, I think.
Yeah, it definitely does because it's very popular because like you see it in media, you see it in the Disney movies Aladdin and the terrible, terrible series called Wishmaster. I don't know if you've ever seen those movies. It's based off of that as well. We'll get into some Jinn talk a little bit later. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about your TikTok page?
So I came over from Instagram and kind of started TikTok on a whim. And I did I don't know, like your usual like trajectory through TikTok where you don't know what you want to post about. And then one day, one of my friends said, I said, I don't know what to post about. I want to post, but I don't know what to talk about. And one of my friends said, why don't you post about when you used to work in funeral homes? Like you had a few weird stories. And I'm thinking like no one's gonna care about that. And then the first one like immediately blew up. I posted that months ago. It continues to put up numbers. It's like has so much momentum. It's crazy. And then the subsequent stories I've told that were about working in a funeral home, and then some others from like my personal life. Those kind of picked up steam, and I would try to interject in other posts like about my life or like being a mom or like clothes, and no one cared. No one cared. Post a scary story like so it's like, okay, this is what you want. This is what we're going to give you. This is what you want. So yeah, at this point it's yeah, spooky stuff.
Yeah, I get it. It's one of those things like once you start down a path and you gather a crowd, it's like, okay, this is what y'all like. So we're just gonna keep trekking down this road. Why don't we get into how you your interest into the paranormal and maybe share some of your earliest experiences that you can remember?
Sure. So when I know I always said that I'm like from Western Pennsylvania, but for about 10 years, I guess the first 10 years of my life, I lived in a really small town in central Texas in the hill country. Which at the time was like not super developed, like houses on the lake and trees that kind of grew over the road, spooky hollow style. And I think that just kind of lended itself to being a little bit creepy. And that's where I remember my first experience I ever had. I was, I don't know, 7 years old, and I was sleeping in my mom's bed one night with her, and her room had this big window that overlooked our front yard. And this house was like kind of in like a woodsy area, like on like a big hillside, maybe like a mile or two from like a lake hillside. So it's the country. And there's this big window that overlooked the front yard. And I remember I woke up in the middle of the night, and I don't know why I woke up, but I was definitely awake. Like I got up, I went to the bathroom, I went to grab a drink. So I know I wasn't sleepwalking or like having some like lucid dream. But I went to go get like back in the bed with my mom, and I just went over to look out the big window that looked in the front yard. And when I got there and like looked out the window, like there was a street light that shined kind of onto the yard and the street. So it like lit up the yard, but in the yard there was like what I can only describe as a faint blue, like a very light blue outline of like a person. Like no detail, just like trunk, legs, head. And I remember being so scared because I knew I was awake, I wasn't dreaming. And I was like, what am I looking at? And, ran back into bed, like jumped into the bed. And, I don't think I ever mentioned it to my mom. That was the first thing I remember. But there were other things that happened in that house too. And what really didn't help is my mom isn't, she's not religious. She'd probably call herself spiritual. And she's very into, who was that lady that used to be on Montel Williams' show? The psychic.
Sylvia Brown.
Thank you. Yeah, my mom's really into that kind of thing. When I would have like a weird experience, she'd be like, "It's just the spirits. It's just the spirits." And I'd be like, "Can you like tell me it's not real something?" And I remember another incident when I was younger in that house of watching a cabinet in the kitchen open and snap shut really quick, and running to my mom was like the kitchen, like the cabinet just opened and closed. And she's like, "It's okay. It's just a friendly spirit, probably." So yeah, really early on, I had it in my head that like there's things that we can't explain.
Yeah, it sounds like, especially for me too, it's like very early on, at a very young age, it seems we get exposed to these things. What's interesting in your case is that your mom being spiritual was like, "Oh, it's just a spirit. You know, it's friendly, it wants to play," stuff like that. For me, it my parents were like, "It's nothing."
Oh, like just in denial that there was anything.
Yeah, like we one situation is we hear footsteps in the attic and it's like, "Oh, it's just pigeons and squirrels." It's like,
Boots, like what?
yeah, it's like, "Okay, I'm hearing boots, but, like, what the hell are you talking about?" It's one of those things where you either get parents that try to cover it up because it's like, "I got kids. I can't afford to leave.
Right.
We just have to find some way to explain it away."
Mm.
But it's interesting that your mom was, like, willing to talk to you about that and engage about that. So, I wanna stick on the topic of your mother, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Did she do any type of, like, spiritual practices? Because I know people, like, do sage or they, like or
No.
anything like that.
This is just like very 90s woo, like thinking people are indigo children. And if younger people hear this, they're not going to know what we're talking about, but I think you'll like know what I mean. But you're just very 90s woo. But yeah, no like real spiritual beliefs that she held, no practices. She just was very loosey goosey about that kind of thing. And she's she is one that is like kind of prone to tall tales, like for the sake of entertainment. So you kind of have to take what she says with a grain of salt. But there's like a story in our family where when my great grandmother passed away, my mom claimed that the night that she passed away, my mom was sleeping in the living room. I was a baby. I never knew my great grandmother on that side. Her name was, everyone called her Big Mama. And my mom said she was sleeping in the living room and I was like in a bassinet near her. And my mom said she woke up and opened her eyes and Big Mama was sitting on the coffee table. And my mom looked at her and she looked at her and then she vanished. So my mom called her mother, my grandmother, and was saying, I saw something, I saw Big Mama, and everyone got really irritated with my mom and said, this isn't the time for your stories. Like, this isn't the time, don't make this about you. My grandmother told me that that night she was having a really bad dream. She was asleep and had this horrible dream. And in it, her mother, Big Mama, came to her and like stopped whatever was happening in the dream. I guess my grandmother like opened her eyes and then saw Big Mama, I think if I remember, walking down the hall of her house, like past her bedroom door. So then they believed my mom. Like they believed that she did see, the great grandmother. So yeah, my mom never like it sounds like your parents tried to like kind of squash it. My mom, I think, loves that kind of thing. I think it's her way of understanding the world. Like how we all try to find a way to understand what happens after we die. I think that that's just like what she prefers. So she never tried to like curtail any of that discussion.
What was your father's take?
So he indirectly, no, kind of directly, was also responsible for my interest in this, but in a different way. So my dad grew up Catholic, and by the time he passed away, like he wasn't attending a Catholic church. Like they would be like what I would call like evangelical or like like Protestant denomination Christians. Him and my mom got divorced when I was very, very, very young, and he married my stepmom, who's like my mom. Like I've known her forever. But they believed like a lot of, I know there's different like sects of Christianity, right? But they believed in like spiritual warfare and like, demons and that, you could be afflicted by them and things like that. But it wasn't ever something like we talked about. They weren't like crazy into it. It's just like if it came up at like a Bible study or in the Bible, they were like, yeah, that's a thing that can happen. But unfortunately, when I was 16, our dad, passed away from ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which is like a super rare, terrible neurological degenerative illness. And I remember during the time, because he was sick for about 3 years, I don't remember who, if it was family or church friends, would talk about like maybe he's being oppressed somehow. There's like a malevolent force that's afflicting him. And if he has enough faith, maybe, God will do a miracle. But I remember this book floating around. I don't know who got it for us. And I have a copy of it still called Pigs in the Parlor. I want to say it's from like the 70s. And it's all about like spiritual warfare and like demonic oppression within the lens of Christianity. So while my dad didn't ever really talk about that kind of stuff like my mother did, I did have like that worldview exposed to me via Christianity. And then, of course, when he passed away, there was that question of like, am I ever going to see my dad again? Like, is he in heaven? Where is he? Can he see me? Is he going to appear to me in a dream like my great grandmother did, with my mom? And yeah, I've like maybe had like two dreams about him. I've never seen him. So I don't know, but Yeah, so indirectly, he also influenced my interest in these kinds of things, mostly because of his passing.
The part about, different denominations on what they believe, like with demons and stuff like that. What's interesting is that some of them don't believe in demons
Hmm.
or anything like that. So I always find that interesting,
Yeah,
like where people split off in
yeah.
their beliefs.
Overlap though, right? Like,
Mhm.
like clearly like Muslim, right? So, there's overlap between, I think, specifically like the Abrahamic faiths of like,
Right.
we're all kind of calling the same thing, the same experiences by different names.
In Islam, and I've covered this in previous episodes, specifically think like the early episodes, like in the 30s and 40s that I did with my buddy Aaron. We decided to the end times through different Abrahamic faiths. And it's like when we were doing research on the apocalypse in Islam, it's like, okay, same cast of characters,
Right.
different names because it's in Arabic.
Right.
So, like you said, there's a lot of overlap
Right.
because within Christianity and Catholicism, it's like, okay, we recognize Moses.
Hmm.
You guys recognize
Of
Moses.
course. Yeah.
For us, Jesus is the Messiah. In
Mhm.
Islam, Jesus is a prophet.
Right.
Tons of overlap with these beliefs.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, so you had that first experience where you saw the silhouette, then your mom saw your great grandmother. Living in that home in Texas, did you experience anything else, or was that kind of the gist of it? You just saw that one thing. And
That was it. Just the one thing. I did see other things in my life, but not in that house.
you mind segueing into one of those experiences?
Yeah. So I swear, and I think there's some evidence to this. I do think that like I swear some people just maybe attract those kind of energies because
Sure.
my mom has been in proximity to a few weird things. After my grandmother passed away, I think it was at my mom's house, but my grandmother passed away. It was like the day of the funeral. I was like in my 20s, early 20s, and I was home alone. I think I was just like watching like daytime TV to take my mind off of everything. And off like on the counter, I saw like from my living room to there, I saw it was just a singular item fall off of the counter. Like it had been stationary and it like swept off the counter onto the floor. So I got up and I went to go look at it, and it was a lip liner. I use the same shade like to this day. My grandmother used this shade. I used to play in her makeup when I was a kid. It's the shade I've used forever because it reminds me of her. And there were all these things on the counter, but that lip liner, like in the shade she used, had moved and fell off the counter. That one's like a little easier to explain. Like things move, maybe something bumped it. I don't know what. But then another one with my mom present. I was visiting my mom's house, same thing in my 20s, and I had just pulled into her driveway, broad daylight, and I pulled my SUV like super close to the closed door of her garage, like right up against it. And I was sitting on my phone texting, and I saw her husband walk in front of the car, like in between the front of the car and the what's it called, the garage door. And I'm texting and he's doing like this, like moving and just being like, I just can see him on my periph moving. And I'm like, you're so stupid, like annoying. And he would not move, and I was getting annoyed. I looked up and I'm like, what? And there was no one there. I go to my mom. I go and she's inside lounging on her bed watching probably some ghost shows. And I said, hey, his name is Lionel. I said, hey, where's Lionel? Where'd Lionel go? She goes, oh, he's at work. And I said, no, like I for sure just there was a guy. It was Lionel. Where is he? Like he was standing like between the front of the car and the garage. She's like, what are you talking about? Like maybe he came home. So we go outside and then we look, and there was like this much space because I'm like a 20-year-old girl driver, right? There's this much between the SUV and the front. There's no one was standing there. There's just no way. And I told her, like, no, I know what I saw. And in my mom, typical nature, she goes, no, honey, I believe you because I saw something about 2 days ago.
just so nonchalant about it. Yeah, I saw something a couple days ago. It's
How
fine.
crazy, right? She said, no, I was in my room and I saw what looked like a little boy walk past the door of my room.
Does she not get concerned that
Oh,
sometimes it might not be a little boy?
like I love my mom, but I think she's very naive to some things. So I think that
Mm.
in her mind, she's just watched enough of that programming where it's like a lost spirit that's just trying to find its way, that she wouldn't read anything nefarious into that. But yeah, that was another time that I saw something, but like I swear it's like connected to my mom. And that's where I don't know if these things are attracted to certain kinds of people where like they just are able to see them or they want to see them more. But yeah, the times I've seen things, I felt like my mom was around in the vicinity.
Check out Jaunty Haunts, a podcast all about the supernatural, hosted by Courtney, the self-proclaimed seer who, after 30 years of keeping it quiet, is finally sharing her secret with the world. She sees ghosts. Each episode, she dives into eerie encounters, true tales of the seen and unseen, and welcomes guests to share their own experiences with the paranormal. It's spooky, funny, and surprisingly relatable. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, you'll find something to love. You can listen to Jaunty Haunts every Monday wherever you get your podcasts. You won't want to miss it.
Yeah, you're onto something there because there are some folks that, whether willingly or unwillingly, are more prone to seeing these types of things, hearing these types of things, feeling these types of things. I know for me personally, like when I go into a room and like I feel like there's something off,
Mm,
like I just know immediately.
yeah,
And it's the weirdest thing, like you can't really explain it. Like last year when my wife and we were house hunting, the first house that we saw, we took the tour with the realtor. We go down to the basement and I step 1 foot down there, turned my ass around, went
yeah,
back up.
not the one.
And no, not at all. Down there felt like where I used to live. That
Okay,
was severely haunted.
yeah,
I am not doing this again. It was like something down there knew that I
yeah,
could feel it. I'm like, no,
yeah,
let's get out of here.
yeah. It's not, I say we because they're family to me, but they're not related family. But it was my dad's very, very dear friend. After he passed away when I was 16, like I was just like crashing out, right? Because
Mhm.
bad thing. And I went to go stay with his really good friend and his wife and his kids that I went to high school with. So I went to just go, stay with them. And they lived in this beautiful home that's from the Civil War in Western Pennsylvania. Extremely old home, beautiful. One half of it's completely original, like the hand blown glass, and the doorknob is like a little metal intricate one that rattles, and the other half of the house is built on. But we there was a cellar in that house. To this day, like I'm not going down there for any reason. I swear I heard voices a few times middle of the day. Like I opened the door, and to me it sounded like an old-timey radio playing
Mm.
party. And I, at that point, I'm like, am I schizophrenic? Like, this is only happening sometimes. Like, but I remember one day a girlfriend of mine from high school and we stopped there to get swimsuits or something, then to go to her house. And I said, I just want to see if you hear what I'm hearing. And we stood at the door, and she's like, I hear it. Like, I hear, like, what is that? But then when we pushed open the door and started to go down, there's nothing. At that house, there were several confirmed deaths on the property. Nothing crazy. I don't think it was anything related to the Civil War. It was like, disease or old age. Um,
Mhm.
but if I remember correctly, a little boy had been hit by a car out front of the house.
Oh, okay.
So you're just like, it's the footsteps you mentioned. We were talking earlier. I heard footsteps in that house. There's just some stuff that, yeah, unless you experience it, like, and it's almost like it's not even worth trying to convince people that haven't experienced it. Like they just can't understand like what you've heard or seen.
Right. No, I definitely get it, and I agree with you because you'll encounter people. I know people personally that will try to scientifically explain everything, and it's like, dude, like, there's not a gas leak. It's I'm
Right.
not fucking hallucinating. I know what I heard. I know what I saw,
Right.
and I'm not crazy. And
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing that, being a part of this community, you kind of have to defend yourself from is the label of crazy.
Definitely.
It's like I'm not lying. And one thing I always say to people when I go on other shows to share my stories is like, you know, please debunk me. I
Hmm.
would rather you give me a scientific
Abs-
explanation as
Absolutely.
opposed to like, okay, I really did hear like 1920s fucking music coming out of the basement and there's nothing down there.
And I think it's like I don't know if it's like a cultural, like religious thing too. I do feel like, how do I say this? There's people like in my community that are interested in the stories, and they tell me privately they enjoy them, or they tell me privately they have Jinn stories. But then there are people that in the community that kind of like admonish me, like, hey, we don't tell ghost stories, like we don't tell Jinn stories. And I'm not saying that's not just like the Muslim community, because I grew up in the Christian community, and the similar sentiment was, well, if you talk about scary things, you're going to attract them. So don't
Right.
talk about it because you'll attract it. I think the warning is kind of similar, but I think that what it does is it keeps people like they go underground with their experiences. They don't want to tell anybody because they don't want to be like shamed,
Right.
or like you're bringing this on yourself by discussing it.
Right. No, I that makes sense because up until recently when I started the podcast almost 3 years ago, very much so kept it to myself. I was like, "Okay, I don't wanna talk about this." But I don't know if this was the same case for you that you saw with your family when you started posting stuff and talking about stuff. Everybody starts coming out the woodwork.
Every,
Everybody has a story.
everybody,
Everybody wants to talk about
everybody, everybody.
it.
Yeah, definitely. It's just interesting hearing the way that people like what they attribute it to, because I have so many different friends from different walks of life, which I'm sure you do too. And it's interesting hearing what they attribute it to. Like we're all describing these similar experiences, and no matter what we each think it is, there's some weird taboo with talking about it. Like whether you think it's a demon or a Jinn or a ghost or an energy or something, there's that same taboo that like persists. And I guess I don't understand that, because storytelling, it's like it goes back to the dawn of time, right?
Right.
Uh, you know, I guess maybe that's what it is, right? People assume that you're telling tall tales, and you're like, no, this is actually something that like traumatized me a little bit. Like I'm not, making this up.
Right. And you know what's interesting about that is like, with storytelling and coming up with all these elaborate stories,
Mm.
they all have a baseline somewhere.
Yeah.
They all have some sort of foundation, whether it be the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Ramayana, or what's that? It's the compilation of stories where the Aladdin story comes from.
Oh
If
yeah.
you know,
I know what you're referring
I
to.
think it's like the 101 Nights or something like that.
Arabian Nights.
Arabian Nights, yeah. Like that, it all stems from somewhere. Like,
Right.
for example, I'm like a big Tolkien nerd. Like,
Okay.
I absolutely love Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings does not happen. The Hobbit does not happen if J.R.R. Tolkien does not participate in World War One.
Hmm.
Like the Iliad and the Odyssey does not happen unless there was some sort of drastic war during the Bronze Age that was kind of like a mini world war during that time. So they all have some sort of realistic event
Right.
behind them.
He did it.
Like you don't hear about La Llorona and the Kuche Sakeona and all these weeping women tales
Mm.
from cultures thousands of miles from one another that never interacted, but we all have the same stories.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of tulpa effect going on? Or is there something more?
I mean, like my worldview, Jinn is what ended up making the most sense to me, because they're so versatile. They can be anything, they can appear in any way. So for me,
Right.
that explains not only because we can get to a whole cryptid conversation here too, and we'll never finish this episode, but for me, that also covers like people that have seen like stuff at Skinwalker Ranch, or, see Bigfoot, or, aliens. For me, I'm like, okay, well, for me, Jinn can explain that, because they have these supernatural powers, and they can shapeshift, and they can materialize, dematerialize. So yeah, like I mean, like the tulpa thing, yeah, but I mean, for me, even like Jinn would cover like a tulpa too.
They are in an unseen world. They
Right.
exist in a plane. It's really weird because they exist in their own plane, but our plane at the same time if they want to.
Yeah.
But for the listeners, Noree, do you mind quickly just giving a quick background of what Jinn are for some folks that may not be familiar?
Yes, and I just want to preface and say, because someone will call it out in the comments, I'm not a sheikh, I'm not an imam, I'm not a scholar. Um, Anything I say that's correct, let's give credit to like Allah for that, not me. Anything I say that's incorrect, let me take the blame for it. But
Yeah, if I could get Mufti Menk on the podcast, I would to talk about this stuff, but I don't think he'd ever come on.
there's a you probably have already listened to it. I'll send you the link. But there's an excellent Yasir Kadhi lectures on Jinn and Sihir. He's the resident scholar at one of the masjids here in DFW. Brilliant man. And he has it's like a 3 or 4 hour, several part series on this topic that like everyone should. It's just fascinating. I'll send it to you, but
It's funny because I thought about emailing him because I've, like, watched all of his YouTube videos
really
on the Jinn to, like, do an episode on my own, and I took so many notes. It's
yeah.
like, I could never do this by myself, and I was gonna email him to see if he would come on, but I never took the chance. I'm like, he'll probably look at my email and be like, "I don't wanna fucking talk to this moron." Like,
You never know to try, but yeah, I wanted to make sure that I didn't misquote anything going in. And so I had re-listened. I've listened to those multiple times. I re-listened to it. But yeah, kind of what you said, like Jinn aren't ghosts. They're not demons per se. They're not spirits. They're a completely separate creation that existed before God created humans. And like you said, they exist in like a parallel plane, like an unseen world that's alongside ours. And we can't see them. They can always see us, but we can't see them unless they make themselves known to us, which they're not supposed to. They know that they're not supposed to do that. So any Jinn that's like showing themselves doesn't have like any good intention. They have supernatural powers. Yes, your he was like really careful to say that like they're not like the strongest, they're not stronger than Allah, right? They're very strong. They're stronger than most men, but not all men. But then the flip side is they're less intelligent than most humans, but not all. Like some of them are very like crafty. Some of them, known as the Ifrit, are very powerful. He said that would be most like what we would say would be like a demon. Well, they can do like really intense things. There are good Jinn, there are bad Jinn, there are Jinn that became Muslims, there are Jinn that are not Muslims. They have thousands of children. They live a very long time and they can appear in any form, but they were made from smokeless fire. No one knows the true form of a Jinn because anytime they've appeared, it's in a form that they chose. The creation that lives alongside us, that's supernatural, can be more powerful, but not always. But they're not like this. They don't supersede God.
is the first Jinn, was that Iblis? So is that like the equivalent of Lucifer in Christianity where Iblis gets pissed off? He's like, I'm not
He didn't
like
want to out, yeah. So in this case, he felt that he was actually, they say that he was the first racist. He felt that he was better than Adam alayhi salam. So he was told he did not want to like prostrate to him or like show him any respect because he felt that his race, his being was superior.
you said there were different types of Jinn.
Yeah.
The Ifrit I'm familiar with. They're like I've seen like depictions of them and they're like very grotesque and creepy looking depending on the region of the Middle East
Where
you
you're
see the depiction from. Do you know by chance what the type of Jinn that the genie is that we all assume the genie is? Like
no,
he grants
like
wishes.
American word, like English word for Jinn. And there's so many different kinds, and I'm not well versed on the different types at all. Like my understanding is very like general, like most people's. Like I have a special interest in it, but I'm not that well read on like the specific like subcategories.
Maybe that's for the best because apparently they're all around us all the time and you
Yeah.
never know where they are.
But the good
And
is we are told like in the Quran, the Hadith, like there are ways to keep them away or like lessen your chances of interacting with them, like maintaining your salah, your five, we pray 5 times a day, maintaining your salah, playing Surah Al-Baqarah, reciting or playing Surah Al-Baqarah on the house. It's said that like shaitan won't enter a house that recites Baqarah. Then I mean we could do a whole other episode on like evil eye and sihir, but like staying on top of your salah, like reciting Quran, Ayatul Kursi, the 3 Quls, last 2 verses of Baqarah, like those are ways to like dispel Jinn. And then there's like other like lesser known ones, like food falls on the floor, you want to pick it up, don't eat with your certain left, don't eat with the hand. So there's things that we do that can like bring them to us, like clutter. Jinn want to be in like filthy areas like your bathroom. There's prayers that like short prayers that we recite, duas, before we enter the bathroom, like leave the bathroom, because they want to hang out where there's like filth. They like clutter, they like old places. Like it would not be recommended for us to go exploring abandoned homes because that would
right.
we're hanging out. So there's steps that we can take, things that we can avoid to mitigate, Jinn activity and interference in your life. But like the most important thing that like Yasser Qadhi really drives home in those lectures is like learn more about them so you don't fear them, because they could be so powerful, but if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not will for them to interfere with you, like they won't be able to. They're powerful, but not more powerful than him. It helps to like keep that in mind, like as a Muslim, like because it gets scary. Like you hear weird things, you hear these scary stories about possession and people seeing them, and if you've experienced it, like yeah, I get scared, I get spooked really easily. But where I have to really remind myself is, what are the steps I can take? What can I do?
Right.
Sense, yeah.
Yeah. My mom says the same thing. Like she's Catholic and she literally says the same thing. Like there's no one more powerful than God. And if you believe and you believe in your home, like that it's a sanctuary of God, nothing will trouble you. You can easily cast out anything.
Yeah.
What I find interesting, and this may take us down a philosophical discussion, but I do want to get more into your paranormal experiences. My question is, from your perspective, you had exposure similar to me to both sides of the faith. You
Mhm.
had Christianity around you, and you're now a Muslim. I'm now a Catholic. How do we explain in Catholicism,
Mhm.
like exorcism works? In Islam, ruqya works. When they call out on the names of demons
Mhm.
for exorcism, it works. Like both of it works. So, like, I always struggle internally because I'm a gamer and one of my favorite game series is God of War.
Okay.
And like all of these gods and these like deities and stuff exist together in the world.
Right.
And I'm like, is that the same with jinn and demons? Like there's this continuity on that spiritual level where, there's one God, but they're like these different like types of beings that just exist.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I believe in like, jinn possession and like regular possession and like rukia. We can have, rukia performed on us, or we can, perform rukia like on ourselves. So like yeah, I fully believe in like the possibility that a jinn, a demon can go in and like take control. I've heard stories from like my imam about it firsthand. A lot of stories online. Yasser Kadhi has a lot of stories. So like yeah, I fully believe, like I believe in it completely. And that's another thing too that exists in so many cultures and so many faiths, the concept of a spirit can enter you and be controlling you. See, I completely believe in that.
Yeah, and what I always struggle with personally is, well, how does all of this stuff work? Like for each faith it works. So if I take, for example, let's take Reagan from The Exorcist.
Hmm.
Instead of calling a Catholic priest, they went to the mosque and they got an imam that was like
Yeah.
went to Saudi Arabia, was certified to do ruqya exorcisms, and he comes and he does that and it works.
Yeah.
Like, you get what I mean? I'm like, would that like, I'm trying to, like, understand, and I'm not asking you directly, it's just kind of like a general question of, like, where is the overlap here? Like, where do we draw the line of, "Okay, this works, this doesn't work." I know you'll always have your people that are, like, very hard line, they draw a line in the sand, it's like, "No, it's this and only this that works."
And that's not me, not because I don't have like complete faith like in Islam for me, but like my heart just tells me like Allah knows everybody's intentions, right? Like he knows our hearts, he knows our intentions. That doesn't matter if you're a Catholic, a Muslim, a Jew, atheist, agnostic. In my mind, this is all the same God. And in my
Right.
mind, this is all the same set of nefarious things. So in my mind, Catholics might have success with the Bible, Jewish people might have success with the Talmud, and then we would have success with the Quran, because I think that we're all calling, again, my opinion, I'm going to get dragged. I think we're calling upon the same God for help with the same beings. So that's why I think, yeah, I think you could probably take a possessed Muslim to a Catholic priest and like have some success, because again, just my opinion, I think we're all working with the same thing and against the same things, but just calling it different names.
No, that's a fair assessment.
But it could be completely wrong. So someone
Right.
about it, which is my opinion.
That's kind of like why I do this show. Number one, it's like to have a paranormal safe space for, folks like
Mm.
you and I to come on and share our experiences without, being ridiculed or calling crazy. And also to have these type of discussions, because it really takes me back to like my graduate seminars and like having these types of discussions for hours with my colleagues. And when you go to grad school, it's like it's not just, kids from your local area. It's literally people from all over the world, so you get different perspectives on things. So it's really awesome.
That's why I've had this argument this week. Hey, we're all talking about the same thing. Like, we're all describing the same things. There are people that are like, no, absolutely not. It's different. It's a different God. It's different entities. It's a different devil. And everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? But
Right.
yeah, I always go back to these stories have stood the test of time, and the descriptions are so similar, from the dawn of time across different cultures and religions. So to me, like I said, I think we're all describing the same things. They appear in the same ways. We're just calling it different things.
I tend to agree with you. And my co-host Dean, he's not here today. He's just, dealing with some personal stuff. But he's kind of the same mind, where he was a diehard Christian Catholic for a little bit, really went into his faith. And then, he kind of pulled back a little bit.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, what does this stuff really mean?
Yeah.
Like, is it all one thing? And he's like, like he said when he was in, I think it was Catholic school or something like that, that he got put in a course to study other religions. And he
Hmm.
said for his classmates, it hardened their faiths. For him, it was like, oh, there's other stuff out there that believes these things.
Yeah.
Let's go and try to find out, how they deal with stuff. So, and I've always been of the same mind, mostly because of, I would say my upbringing, because like my mom's Catholic, my uncle's a Muslim, my dad was a Hindu. I have family members that by marriage are Jewish. So it's like it's kind of like pick your flavor.
Yeah. That's very much how one side of my family is too. I think we've got everybody at this point. It's like yeah, which is great. It's awesome. And thankfully, same thing. We can all sit around and talk about like what we think things are. And it's very like, conversational and welcoming. And it's just like a very safe environment to discuss like the similarities and the differences, which is another thing that I've always liked about the paranormal community. So back in 2020, like everybody in 2020, I had a podcast for a while covering these kinds of topics. And I don't know, why I stepped away from it, but what I love about the community, the cryptid community and the paranormal community, is it's so many different types of people, and none of us can judge the other on our religion or our culture or our worldview, because we all are the crazy people that saw something.
Yep.
We're all in the same boat, nut bags. Like, everybody put our differences aside, because we all know what we saw, we know what we heard. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating where occasionally you'll come across these videos of former US soldiers that were deployed out in the Middle East.
Okay, do you follow on Instagram Tales from the Grid Square?
No, I don't.
It's exactly what you're describing. It's yeah, his whole it's a big Instagram. Yeah, Tales from the Grid Square. Grid Square. And it's military service members from all over the world, like UK, but predominantly UK and American, I would say, sharing their stories of like deployment or being on these old bases. Fast,
Hmm.
check it out for sure.
Yeah, I watched this one show. I forgot what it was. Okay, I remember. I think it was it was a show called A Ghost Ruined My Life by
Okay.
Eli Roth. I think it's on HBO
Yeah.
Max if you have that. I think it's either the first or the second season. One of the people on the show was deployed and I guess went into an area and there was like an ifrit there and it latched onto him and just kind of like ruined his freaking life when he came back to the States. It's nuts what some of those soldiers say they saw out in the mountains of Afghanistan and
The
you
giant.
know the giants of Kandahar. Yeah. And I don't think it was in Afghanistan, but it might have been in Iraq. This soldier said that he was, doing guard duty and he just like saw this light
Hmm.
just go moving across the field. No
Hmm.
idea what it was. And he said he was just like completely petrified and just scared. And it scares me to be honest, because it's like, why are they only showing up there? And over here we have something completely different.
Yeah,
That's the other thing that gets me as well.
I think that. Well, okay. So if it's like Jinn, they know
Mhm.
what to appear as to be scary. So
Okay.
we're again operating under the assumption that it's a Jinn. Like it knew that this would work on that person. maybe this works on certain cultures, that it would need to present itself differently in this country to be scary. Um,
Right.
because they're like, again, they're not the smartest being, but they're smart. And then that's just factoring in Jinn operating of their own accord. That's not considering if they were sent by like a magician, right? Or somebody that was like practicing sihir and had like a specific way they were trying to, utilize the Jinn to scare someone or ruin a marriage or, that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess that would be like my guess is it knew it would scare that person in that culture at that time.
I have one more thing before we get into your funeral home stories,
But
which I really want to get to. You ever listen to The Hidden Jinn with Rabia Chowdhury?
yes,
Yeah, that was one of my like favorite
it's a good
podcasts where she would talk about the Jinn.
check out. There's a Jinn Stories podcast on Spotify too. That's a lot of like user submitted or listener submitted stories. So
Mhm.
it's like pretty much all Muslim stories, but that's a good one too. There's some scary ones on there.
Yeah, I believe it. I had a friend in grad school when I was doing my the ESL program. She was from Algeria,
Oh, cool. Okay.
and she told a story about this lady that she would sit on the side of the road and she would like talk to herself, and they called her crazy and stuff like that. And rumor gets around, it's like, okay, this lady's possessed by a jinn,
Mhm.
whatever, leave her alone. She didn't believe her. She didn't believe that, she was possessed by a jinn. She thought she was like
Mentally ill, maybe.
certified nuts, like some mentally ill. Unfortunately, like in some places of the world, like that's not taken seriously. But she said like she walked by her with her mom one day, made eye contact with her, went about her day. A couple weeks later, she's at home with her friend, and they start talking about this lady. Oh, how she's nuts. She's like possessed by a jinn and stuff like that. The next day, she's out walking with her mom again, and the lady stops her and says, "Why were you talking about me?"
Ooh, I got a goosebump.
Right? Goosebumps.
Yeah,
Goosebumps.
yeah,
It-
yeah. So they came
yeah.
listening to a lecture the other day. I forget if it was Yasir Qadhi or if it was Omar Suleiman, but was saying someone said to him, "How can the Jinn or people possessed by Jinn?" And he said that they listen in on Allah. They listen in on conversations with Allah,
Mhm.
and they will come with maybe one bit of truth and 100 lies. So someone that's like a Jinn that's speaking through someone, they might know one grain of truth, but there might be a lot of lies in there too. Or like people that want to go to like a fortune teller that says they're channeling something, same kind of concept. So because that was, I guess, a really common question is, well, the Jinn knew something about me they cannot have known, or the person possessed could not have known this. But I
Right.
guess that's like the explanation for how. But that is spooky.
Okay. All right. That
Like,
was weird.
I'm saying,
That was weird. I think maybe that's our sign to move on to the next topic of the evening.
you know what? I was talking on another podcast last week, and on the same topic, we had every electronic issue on both ends just go haywire. So yeah, I think you're onto something.
Yeah, yeah, these things they know.
Yeah,
They know.
they do.
My one friend JJ, he went to Harvard Theology School
No, nice. Okay,
to study like Second Temple Judaism and the pseudepigrapha and
cool.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
And the one thing he always says is the enemy does not like when you talk about it,
Yes.
because when you talk about it, you openly speak of ways to defeat
Yes.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that they like, I think they like knowing they scare you, but what they like even less is like we were talking about earlier, like, yeah, you're scary, you can do some scary things, but you are not the most powerful being. And
Right.
they don't, yeah, I don't think they like that message being spread, but what can you do?
What I would like to do is I would definitely like to have you back
Yeah,
to
definitely.
talk about some more Jinn and maybe some overlap with the cryptid world. I find that fascinating, and I've
Big fan.
never heard that perspective before.
Yeah.
So definitely. And my co-host texted me stating that he apologized that he couldn't make it this evening and was asking if you'd be willing to come back on. So
Oh, no, I'd love to. Absolutely. Anytime.
awesome. So we'll have to plan something. You hear that, Dean? You missed a good conversation, but We'll get Noree back for you so we could go on a cryptid deep dive.
I'm down.
But Noree, in some of your TikTok videos, you shared that you used to work in a funeral home.
Hmm.
One, why don't you share your one, this question, what possessed you to work there? And two,
But
would you go into some of the weird things that happened?
yeah, so at the time that I was working in the funeral home, my intention was not to work in funeral homes forever. I was enrolled in 2019 in a pre-med biology program here in the Dallas area, and I wanted to be a pathologist and I wanted to work for like a medical examiner's office. Someone gave me the advice of it's really hard to get in at the Dallas ME's office unless you know someone, but you can probably get in working at a funeral home and kind of get some experience with, we call them decedents. Get some experience with the decedents there, learn about that industry. You're helping people. It just might be a good thing to try out. So I was very quickly able to procure a job in a funeral home because, as it turns out, a lot of people think they want to work in one. And then they have their first, usually a kid. You see a kid and you're like, I'm out. This isn't for me. But I think because of, I don't know, I don't know what my view is on death exactly with my dad dying so young. Maybe I'm like a little desensitized to it. So for me, like it was a good fit working in a funeral home. I can stomach the work, so to speak. So yeah, it was in relation to like a program that I was in at that time. And I'll be honest, like my favorite job I've ever had. I would work in a funeral home again in a heartbeat. But yeah, so that was how I got into it, was because of a program I was in for biology.
While working at a funeral home, like what things did they have you do and what weird experiences did you have there?
So I wasn't a licensed embalmer. That wasn't like my career path. But I spent a lot of time like helping the embalmers, but also helping the funeral directors. I saw a lot of what I would call front of house, administrative work. There is a sales component to funeral homes. So, that side of things, helping with families, helping with services, but then also the back of house, helping prep, move around, dealing with, ashes, and you just back of house in a funeral home, which you can probably imagine. But um, I was with a funeral home employee. He was a mortician, but in a past life for like 20 years, he had been a paramedic. And he like had a wife and kid, and he just was tired of that. It was just a really like challenging career. So he switched over to being an embalmer. And he was probably in his, I'd say like maybe like late 50s, early 60s, very dad figure. And I would just follow him around, watching him and watching him work and learning what he did. And one day I said, you got to have some stories. Like, you've worked here, you've got to have some stories. He's like, not really. I can think of like two, but one of them's pretty scary. I'll tell you it. So I believed him because he wasn't jumping to like tell me these scary stories. So I believed that he did have one that really happened. And of course it was at that location, but basically he was working like 5:30 in the evening, 6 in the evening, with him, another embalmer, and an apprentice. And they had been setting up for a service the next day for like a 10-year-old little girl. So her casket with her in it was in the like reception area, like where you would have the service. And the apprentice had gone to like look some things over, come back, and they were going to leave. So the two embalmers are in the back. The apprentice goes to the room where the little girl is. And a few minutes later, my coworker said the apprentice came racing back in, and he grabs his keys. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm gone. I'm leaving. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, I think I saw something. I don't want to do this. I don't think this is for me. I'm so sorry. I have to go. So he leaves. My coworker told the other embalmer, I'll just finish wrapping things up, go home. So the other guy leaves. My coworker is going around locking things up, and he makes his way into the room where the little girl's casket is. And it's an open casket. He's like adjusting the spray of flowers. He's standing facing into the casket, and he's just adjusting things. And he said that out of his peripheral, he saw someone walk up beside him. And he's thinking maybe it's the other embalmer or the apprentice came back. He looks, and it's the little girl looking into her own casket.
No.
Yeah. And he said she's just peering in, and then kind of stepped back, and then just like missed, he said. Like just top to bottom missed, just vanished. And he said that's the only thing he ever saw, but that was enough for him to be like, there's things we can't explain that happen when we pass away. So that's not my story, but it's the one that kind of blew up my TikTok,
Mhm.
because it's like both scary and heartbreaking. And it raises so many questions, especially depending on like what faith you are. Like what was that? Was that really that poor little girl? Was it a Jinn there to scare him? Was it energy? Was it, her soul? We don't know. But that was the main story that kind of launched this whole TikTok thing. People wanted to hear more of the funeral home stories.
That's a creepy one. And it's kind of sad at the same time. She came back and it's like, oh, I really am gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye. And just
Left.
disappears.
And that one, the comments on that video, you see, borderline arguments, people arguing, no, she's in heaven. Jesus would never let a child's soul wander. And then other people saying, well, souls can get lost. And then Muslims saying, no, it's a Jinn. So it's really interesting seeing the dialogue on that one story. So that's my scary story. But I did have an experience in one of the funeral home locations. It's a little funnier, but still kind of scary. So this was a chain of funeral homes in the area, and some are newer than others. That story happened in a very new location. And then one night I was filling in at a very old location. It was
Now, was this in Texas or was it in Western Pennsylvania?
Yeah, this is Dallas area.
Dallas area? Okay.
Yeah, so I was filling in at a location that was very old, had a very old, like, historic cemetery, like, right across the street that was owned by the funeral home. And I was there maybe like 7 o'clock in the evening for a service for like a 60-something-year-old African-American gentleman. They weren't expecting a lot of family, so it was just me and one other girl. They thought people were going to kind of trail in and out. By 8 o'clock, let's close it down and go home. So sure enough, like, family kind of comes and goes, visitors come and go. Like 8 o'clock, we need to kind of wrap it up. Everyone's left. So she's locking down computers and things in the office. And I went in to pick up like the programs people left on the chairs, do a sweep, close his casket, and then we're going to leave. So I'm in this room by myself, and it's like this, like, low, it's an old building, low ceiling, pew kind of benches, look how a church would have, but very small, maybe like six back. And then there's like little lanterns and the flowers and the casket. And the gentleman was in his, open casket. And he had a very, like, we talked about this earlier, getting vibes, just nice vibe. Like, I didn't know him in real life, but people had nice things to say about him. He seemed like probably a nice person. My back is to the casket. I'm picking up programs, and I like bumped my knee or my foot. I don't remember which, but I said, like, I think I cussed. Let's just say I said shoot, but it probably wasn't shoot. But like, as I banged my foot or my knee, I was like, shoot. And behind me, I hear like a chuckle that sounded like a 60-year-old man. So I'm thinking one of the guests had been like using the bathroom or came back in to get something. I'm going to turn around. There's going to be like a guest laughing at me, but there's no one in this room. It's like one way in, one way out. So I'm looking, and I'm just looking. And again, he looked very peaceful. Like, like I think I felt my leg and he laughed at me.
Noree, I've had you here for about an hour. I want to be respectful of your time.
Of course, yeah.
Why don't you share with the listeners where they could find your TikTok, where they could find your socials, and if they want to get a hold of you to maybe talk more Jinn and scary stuff?
Yeah. So I do still have Instagram, Noree, Noree, Migliore, Migliore, but I'm primarily on TikTok these days. Yeah, would love to, like, if anyone has any like stories they want to submit, I'm happy to read them, or has any ideas for videos I can research. I'd love to hear those too.
You heard her, folks. Go give her a follow on her socials. Get a hold of her. Maybe she'll come on your show and share some scary stories like she did today. And if you would like to be on the show like Noree was today, please shoot us an email at twroadpodcast@gmail.com. And we hope you enjoyed today's episode.
You've reached the end of tonight's journey on the Wandering Road. The show is written and produced by me, Chris, and my co-host, Dean. If you've got a scary story of your own, or if you'd like to join us as a guest, send your tale to twroadpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to follow us on social media for more haunted fun. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please rate, review, and share the show. It helps keep the lantern burning for fellow travelers. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your mind in the shadows, because the wandering never ends.